Want to bring in digital forensics analyst Joseph Caruso and also attorney Ariva Martin. All right, Joseph and Ariva, thank you both for being with us. Joseph, let me start with you. This was like a 3-hour hearing. A lot of it went above my head when it comes to this cell phone stuff because they talk about all the technical data. But the expert there was clear that he says there's important information missing that may actually help Kohberger. Do you buy it, Joseph?
I don't buy it. First of all, thanks for having me. I think that what he's talking about, or I know what he's talking about, is actually the drive testing data. So initially, law enforcement got the call record data, the call detail records, the CDRs, and they're not disputing those CDRs are incorrect. The drive testing is used to validate the CDR records. So the drive testing, the law enforcement goes out with specialized equipment and software. They drive the route, they gather data on the cell phone towers, their strengths, their coverage, different things like that. And that helps to validate the call records. I think that if that data is missing because there was a malfunction in the equipment, I haven't seen any of the data that they have. But 2% of the data in the grand scheme of things, he's talking about I think he said somewhere in 500,000 lines of data, and there's 2 to 3% missing. You know, I think it's very easy to go back through the call details and go and match them up to the physical events. So I'm not really buying it, no. I think that it's important to do the drive testing, but I don't see anyone disputing the accuracy of the actual. I see no one, disputing the CDRs. So I'm not buying that this is,
Yeah, it's interesting you say. It's interesting you say you don't buy it, Joseph, because I was out there through most of it in terms of when they were trying to catch Kohberger and the whole investigation, and they had this massive FBI mobile unit, and the FBI agents we know were part of tracking down the cell phone data and putting it all together. So I was sitting there listening to this hearing, Ariva, thinking, does this expert really know better than the FBI? Because he made it seem so bad, but I guess this is sort of what defense experts do, Ariva?
Well, this expert has a particular history. First of all, he has primarily testified in cases for the prosecution. He has about 100 or so cases that he's been involved in, typically as an expert, though, for the district attorney. In this case, he is an expert that's been hired and retained by the defendant in the case. But there's also been questions about the technology that he used, the method that he uses to make his determinations. And some courts have literally refused to allow his evidence, his testimony, to be used to make a determination about whether a cell phone was in a particular location. So there's some questions about the credibility and the reliability of the algorithm that is used by this particular expert. But it's important to note, this is not the trial. This is still a preliminary hearing. And this is still a determination that has to be made by the judge if there's probable cause. And this expert has said he has real doubts about whether the alibi or the lack of, he has real doubts about the prosecution's case. And he says that the algorithm and the data that he's reviewed supports the alibi of the defendant, that he wasn't near the location of the murders at the time that these murders took place. I'm not so certain that's going to be enough, though, to prevent this case from moving forward to trial. There's other evidence that the prosecution has, like DNA evidence, like surveillance video of the vehicle that was seen near the scene of the murder. So I think after all of the evidence is introduced, this judge is likely to still move forward, and this case is going to proceed to trial.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring up the point, Ariva, that we're not in the trial phase yet, because I've kind of wondered what's been going on with these pretrial hearings where they take so much time with these witnesses and we're not even in the trial yet. And I noticed the prosecution doesn't really fight back much, doesn't even really ask many questions of these defense witnesses. Like, is this unusual that this is all being drawn out like this?
It's very unusual, and the families are incredibly frustrated. They are frustrated because they said that this is this should have been moving along a lot further, that they should be a lot further along in the process, that the trial in this case should have already been set and they should be in the thick of the trial. What we keep seeing in this case is the defense arguing that they don't have evidence and the prosecution arguing that we've given you all the evidence that we have. But the judge is clearly not taking control of the calendar and forcing the parties to move this case to trial.